Good.
That's different. Did you, no, we already have them. Okay, because
All right. Grace. Sir. Where'd you plug it in to make this work?
Are you running the machine tonight? There you go.
I think he is.
see, I changed mine.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what happened?
I do want
Yeah, that's right. Rebooting. Hope you're right.
I guess I yes.
Very attentive. What's scary, I'm one of those.
I saw something.
All right, good evening, everybody. Sorry, I'm probably 2 minutes behind. All else fails, we had a computer issue where you plug in a little zip drive and show your presentation. Hasn't been working lately, so we got it fixed today, and it's always great it's working. Of course, I'm making last-minute changes. I come over, plug it in, guess what? It wasn't working. But we got rebooted. We're up and running. So if you all join me with the pledge of the flag to start the meeting, and then we'll get started. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Okay, there's been a lot talk lately about some things the board has been looking at, some ideas that have been brought up, some opportunities that are out there, and the board said, hey, we'd like to put it out in the open and get some feedback from our membership on this particular issue we've been looking at. So they've asked me to put the information out there in a way to solicit the feedback and see where it takes it. What I'm going to do is go through a series of slides. You all know my thing is putting it out there so you can visually see it as you hear me, because sometimes you get bored listening to someone talk. Seeing on the slides, it's not as long as my normal 2 or 3 hour presentation, I promise. It's about 30 slides, and I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. I'll ask you at the end, and then we'll do as much Q&A as you want. I would ask that in the beginning of the meeting, when the Q&A, when we begin talking about in detail, can you hold it to the subject at hand? I know some folks have called or left an email saying, hey, I'd like to ask you about something else tonight. Welcome to take those, but let's get this particular part closed out before we open it up to the floor for any other questions. Everybody okay with that? Can we see it all right, or let me flip one set of lights just to see if it helps them out. Hey, does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about. There's been a lot of chatter, a lot of things going on concerning property next to. All right. Let's talk about the purpose of the meeting tonight. Again, what I want to do is try to dispel any rumors, any concerns people have. And again, in an absence of good information, your mind kind of wanders. You come up with all kinds of things. We're going to try to dispel that tonight and answer your questions concerning the particular opportunity we were looking at. Going to solicit input from you tonight. All I ask is please be respectful when we get to that exchange part. Let's talk about it. There's no decision, no final anything. This is the part of where you kind of interact with your membership, see where their interests might lie on an issue. Lastly, if you could try to hold your questions till the end, it's very, very easy to get derailed and off topic if we don't stick to it. And those who want to hear the whole presentation and then don't want to stay for the whole Q&A, I want to make sure they're able to hear and see the entire presentation. So here's what the inception, we're looking at potential solutions for an ongoing problem that's plagued our community for many, many, many years. Okay, and that's drainage in Section 3. Unfavorable drainage conditions have existed for 15 plus years. You go back and start looking at it. You start going, wow, the folks living in those sections, and again, I don't know whether you do or don't, but they've been dealing with this issue for a long time. Those of us that don't aren't as familiar with it because it just doesn't impact us. But trust me, little bits of rainfall impact those folks. Numerous studies, meetings, requests have all occurred with limited success on correcting that issue for the folks who live in that Section 3 in particular. Single biggest challenge is finding a way to move the water when it falls, when we have a rainfall, or nor'easter, or any type of event where we get a lot of rainfall, is getting away from the community. There's all kinds of smaller solutions where you can tilt, piping in front of my house is tilted the wrong way, or those, little solutions like that, which we can address. And Public Works goes out, they shoot the slope, and they try to make improvement. The challenge is that doesn't solve the biggest problem. Is the fact we can't move the water away from the community en masse to have an effective solution in front of those driveways for any of those. And again, I'm not showing you this as a way to, I'm going to move it a little closer just to get the whole slide. I'm not showing you this in a way to go, oh, this is a big surprise. Any rainfall. This event we documented in 2008. I went back because we have all the current events after that I've posted in recent slideshows and such that we've shown people. 6.4 inches. You see the flooding the folks have to endure. This was in 2009, 3.5 inches in 24-hour period. So this is an ongoing problem. Some folks in this room probably live in those sections. You understand what I'm talking about. Those that don't, get a better idea of what we're looking at. Some solutions. We're working on ways to attack this issue and find a way to create a solution. Something that hasn't occurred before from a standpoint of actually finding an effective solution and then implementing to get it to work. 2009, engineering studies were accomplished. There was a number of things that occurred in addition to the engineering studies, but from those studies, the primary focus was when the water leaves Ocean Pine in Section 3, it travels down Beecham Road. As it travels down Beecham Road, there needs to be some improvements in the way the water flows down the road as opposed to across and piping down it, and the size of the pipe. 3 different solutions were offered. One was one size pipe. What it allowed was for a 2-year rain event for 3.6 inches in a 24-hour period. Now, a rain event, I had to educate myself, and I re-educated today to make sure I didn't say it wrong. When you're looking at a rain event, every area is impacted differently. So you have to do historical data and analysis to find out your area, what a rain event means. There are some areas where this amount of rainfall is very, doesn't mean a whole lot because they get rain year round. In our area, we average approximately, if you look at the National Weather Service, about 4 inches a month on average. So a significant event, or a 2-year event, would be 3.6 inches, 24 hours. So having a pipe the size to move that amount of water away from community. The 10-year rain event, which is 5.6 inches in that period of time, is a larger pipe. And the largest pipe that the solution had called for was something for a 25-year event, or 6.4 inches in a 24-hour period. I call this solution 1 because it was packaged as, we have to lay the pipe down Beecham Road. It's determined by the size of the pipe, which event it handles. So it's really one solution, just 3 different sizes of pipes. How it impacted, for those that may not know, most of this water gets into Bainbridge Pond from one source or another, and there's a feeder that goes out here that actually crosses Beecham Road. Okay, and then the water flows out this way. Well, this solution actually improved the drainage straight down Beecham Road along that ditch side. Okay, so this was a solution 2009 that came up. From there, and the cost for those solutions. 2-year rain event, the cost was $450,000. The next size pipe up for a 10-year rain event increased it to almost $1.4 million. 25-year event, almost $3.7 million to lay the pipe. Pretty significant cost to improve the drainage. It was identified, county looked at it, engineering studies were assessed. It was believed that this was a solution. We submitted requests, numerous requests, we being the Ocean Pines Association, to the county for funding. Get this resolved. 2-year, 10-year, 25, didn't care, just do something to make the improvement. Unfortunately, the county in the last 4 or 5 years has been dealing with lack of roads fund, funding solutions have dried up. County has been reluctant to be able to solve this by just throwing monies at it. Okay, so what do? We could get another way to potentially solve it. Would there be a way to reduce the cost if Ocean Pines performed the labor? reducing a portion of whatever the hard costs were. Okay, so we offered that as a potential solution. Part of the challenges with that, county road, our folks aren't insured if they're working in that area. If our folks, our public works teams, were to hit a pipe, a water main, any electrical wire, who's accountable? If our guys or gals working in public works start that work and they get injured, who covers it? Does our insurance cover them? Does the county, because it's a county project? All these things came up, which kind of said, whoa, this may not be the best solution. But it was something that was explored as an option. Last October, sitting with Eddie Wells is Public Works. He and I were talking. He's intimately familiar with our drainage. He's been involved in this for many, many years here in the Pine. We're sitting there talking about, we reached out to our county officials, said, look, we need to find a solution. Ongoing, it's something that's hanging out there. What can we do? Well, Commissioner Bunning, Commissioner Boggs joined in. We said, yes, let's put this, and the county formed a Beecham Road work group. What that group was put together for is to look at the drainage in Section 3, figure out what potential solutions there would be for it. Look at what we've done in the past, look at what options moving forward we look at, solicit down a pathway. So we formed this working group. We started meeting at least once a month, right, Commissioner Bunning?
Yes.
Sometimes more frequently, depending on what events or activities were occurring, what additional information we may have. JP or John Tustin, Ed Tudor, Chris McCabe, Bobby Shockley, John Ross, Frank Atkins, myself, Eddie Wells, along with our two commissioners met on a regular basis to talk about, look at potential solutions to come up. Where's county funding? And I tell you, Commissioner Bunning really worked hard on trying to find some funding solutions. We're fortunate with his background as a surveyor, unlike anybody else in the room, he was able to identify another possible solution, which I'll bring up in a little while. And Commissioner has not seen my slide presentation, so he doesn't know what's coming. That's why I want to give you a little heads up. Okay. The solution one that came up relatively early, starting from those October meetings. By November, we came back with some ideas. And between November and December, the idea was, let's look at the water that's held from Section 3 drains to Bainbridge Pond. Can we increase the size of the pond to hold some of that water so it's not sitting in everyone's yards, when the roadways to yardways? So instead of this being the pond, the thought was potentially increasing or almost doubling the size of the pond. That was a potential solution we looked at, to capture more of the stormwater runoff, which would serve as a holding spot to move it away from the community into this area. Well, as we explored it, we started looking at past rain events. The challenge that came up, no matter how big the pond you have, we're still stifled with the area. The water still backs up from Beecham Road area back into our community. So you could build a pond as big as you wanted. You're not holding enough water in these type of rain events. The water still has to have somewhere to go. In addition, we're losing a park. So there were two kind of negative consequences when you looked at that potential solution. Here's how the pond backs up and overflows. Again, if you're not out there, if you're not riding around looking at it, you just don't know. If you don't live in that section, you just don't realize how bad it is. So, again, this started with looking at ways to make some improvements there. Okay, had to go back and say, okay, what other options are there? Again, working group, we're all communicating throughout the month. Everyone's kind of doing their thing. Bobby Shockley's looking at one part. Frank Atkins is looking at another. We're all kind of throwing ideas, and we're doing a lot back in email. They're meeting once a month to talk about it. Okay, this is where Commissioner Bunning identified something that was we looked at, really started looking at the plans when River Run was developed, the size of the pipes. So once you cross Beecham Road and you go into the River Run property, what size are those pipes? Questions started coming up. Well, there's the initial plans were submitted at one size, but there's some marks off with initials off saying they're a different size. So following that meeting, several of the county folks, along with Commissioner Bunning, went out, am I correct in saying that, actually looked at the pipe size. Actually got down, started looking to figure out what we had there. they identified that pipe sizing was slightly smaller than the initial application from when the piping was initially went in. Now, it was approved, so no one's done anything wrong, but there was a reduction in size. So if you look at that reduction in size, you start to back up and go, okay, wait a minute. If we have all this water to move and the pipes might be too small, let's go back and do some flow. Let's figure out how much water should be going through them and if there's potential solution. Commissioner, am I off any of those?
No, not really, no.
Not really.
The
Part of it, jump in.
only thing we found out the pipe sizing was actually bigger in certain areas than what the plan showed. We
But
found
the
out that-
primary area across it
Yes.
down was
we found out that we had two runs of pipe were 24 inches, then the rest of them were 36 inches. And the plans showed they were all 24 inches. And that's what we found out.
so basically the anticipation was a larger pipe ended up being smaller pipe. Right? That's not what. Would you please repeat? Did I miss it?
The plan, first of all, I'm glad Bob turned the lights down low. Before the rumor gets out that I've been intoxicated and fell down on my face, I'm having the treatment done for the basal cell cancers, and it's not looking good. And I apologize for the way I look tonight. But what we found is the plan showed the pipes were 24 inches clear from Beach Road all the way through the system. We found out that the first two sections of pipe were 24 inches, and from then on it was 36 inches through the project, the River Run. And we going through the math, which Bob's going to get into, we find out it's a simple solution of those first two runs of pipe increasing the size of them, because the one that runs underneath Beecham Road is 36 inches, and therefore water will come away quicker and we will handle a better sized storm.
So you're saying to increase the two of them, the 24 inches, 36 inches.
Well, that would match the rest of them, but we even find a simpler solution, which we'll go into.
Question,
So the pipe-
the approval of these, or the size of these, were originally approved by the county?
Years ago, yes. Yeah, before long before my time.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no blame, just
And-
where it is. All right, so the other thing is where the pipe that crosses Beecham Road, and again, Commissioner, anytime you want to jump in on this, you're better at this than I am. But basically, the angle, the way the pipe crosses the road, actually goes this way, and then water drains back kind of in this direction. Pipe's not straight across, the angle's a little bit, which forms a little bit of a deadhead with the piping. Okay, so I'm not going to say it flows backwards, but it doesn't flow as smoothly as it could if it was flowing in that direction. Yeah, these are each little spot where you could have a backup or a deadhead or something that's not flowing the way we anticipated is going to eventually continue to back it up into our property. The solution we're working on is making some changes to the piping, potentially changing the way that pipe angles under Beecham Road or expanding the turn so we don't get that stagnation there. We've been working on this particular solution for 14 months. No final design has been approved yet. No signed contract with the owner of the River Run property has occurred as of. No funding solution for the project has been identified, which means there is no shovel in the ground as of yet. The upside is, and Commissioner, you want to talk a little bit about the other solution that you're referring to where it may be a little bit simpler?
Yeah, could you bring it back to the slide that showed the aerial?
Beecham Road?
This is the pond.
Favorite is here.
Okay, but this is the pond on the
On the
river.
other side, yes, sir.
Okay. Just basically, there was a 24-inch pipe ran like this, then ran down to a catch basin right here, and then from that point on through the system going out was 36 inches. Well, we first thought about putting another 24-inch pipe or replacing this pipe with a 36-inch pipe. Two alternatives going down here and in between the homes, very expensive. with John Katowski's help from River Run and Mr. Meltzer, they suggested just coming down the road and then going directly over to this pond, because we found that from this pond there was a 36-inch pipe tied into the other 36-inch pipes. And the pond would certainly hold the water. So the cheaper route was just going down the side of the road and over to that pond, and that's going to be the cheapest way we could get there. We've drawn up agreements for Mr. Meltzer. They're in his attorney's hands right now. We should hear something within a week. One of his requirements was that Daff McKean & Walker, the engineering firm here, Williams, I believe, whatever it's called, that his engineers verify what the numbers our people were coming up with. And so far, everything looks really good. We're actually at, what was the cost of the 25-year storm?
3.7.
Okay, actually, with what we're doing, we're certain it'll handle a 25-year storm. It's become close to handling a 100-year storm.
Rough cost.
We haven't really bidded it out, but I'm saying if I had to guess, it would be less than $100,000. Don't quote me. I mean, we haven't. I shouldn't have said that.
It's not 10 million.
I put it this way: the county has spent money on other things that certainly I'm going to do my best to get the funding for this little project, because I don't think it's going to be that much to help to pay for this. We've spent money on other things. It's certainly a worthwhile cause to spend money on. So I'm going to do my best to to get the county to provide, but it's going to be a lot. It's only 200 feet, 200 and some feet of extra pipe. That way we take advantage. We leave the 124-inch that's going down to here, water will run that way, and then the other one will pick up and go this way to the pond, then they'll go join together. So you're actually going to, doubling what you got there. And you won't have what we call an outlet control situation where water goes through the pipe under Beecham Road. And just imagine, let's say there was a cliff on the other side of Beecham Road, the water can just boom and fall out, and can take it away quickly. What we have now is it's building up actually higher on Beecham Road side, creating a whirlpool effect and scaring out the bank. It will correct all of that situation. Now, as Bob said, nothing's in stone, but so far Mr. Meltzer has been very cooperative. I talked to our attorney today. We should know within a week what his attorneys say. The agreements are written, and John Toston from our Public Works Department is ready to do something. I mean, he's wanting answers. He wants to do it. And all the reports from Daff McKean & Walker came back favorable that there would not be any negative effect upon River Run. I mean, it's not going to be any problem by them helping us, and I certainly appreciate Mr. Meltzer working with us on this. Without him, this wouldn't be the solution wouldn't happen. So I feel good about it, but it's not in stone. It's not written in stone, just as Bob said. But we're certainly working on it, and we think we're close.
So this was.
Question. What's the condition of the existing old piping? It's old, right?
The first 24 inches the first two runs of 24 inch are okay. From that point on, what happened was an as-built showed it was 24 inches west completely through, and back in, do you remember the date 2004 or 5? From that second section of pipe, it was replaced with brand new pipe, 36-inch pipe. So everything is new from that plant.
Okay, so this is the current solution for the drainage, which set us on our path, looking at what the options were in that area, trying to make this type of improvement, which started the path looking at other alternatives. Went through these. Now, knowing that we're not complete with this project yet, simultaneously over the last 6 months, we've been looking at other strategies as well. Again, prudent to do so given the fact we've had other solutions on the table that haven't vetted out for us as a community. Secondly, because we're having this accomplished is in the hands of a private property owner adjacent to it. So without knowing for sure what was going to occur, we had a simultaneous path or a parallel path to do to make some improvements otherwise. We started looking at, there's the Bainbridge pond, where the additional spacing was considered, looked at the additional increasing the pipe, the highest cost at about $3.7 million, looking at what other options might be available to relieve the pressure from this section. Well, knowing that private ownership here, this particular piece of property, which is known as the Pine Shore North property, has become available through the bank. We started looking at potential solutions there. Looked at the property itself and said, and again, please understand, this was about 5-6 months ago. We weren't sure, maybe a little longer, we weren't sure exactly where we were with this solution, running closer with this on. So we're going down this path, and we said, well, this has some potential for it. As we started to look at that, we noticed where our outfall from our community was here on Beecham Road was only about 55 or 60 feet down Beecham Road. Said, okay, well, wait a minute. This gives us an opportunity to maybe move water out of this section into some other property if we're locked out through the River Run property. Went back and looked at the topography map. Does it even make sense to even consider? Well, when you start looking at the topography maps, you start looking at elevation of the property, and there's spots all over the property. Some spots over in here are 20 feet. The property here, which is adjacent to our property, on both sides, the elevation is about 15 feet. Interestingly enough, running down the side of the property, it decreases, except for one small spot up in here. The rest of it decreases till you get down to 5 feet on the back end of the property. The reason that's important, you think, okay, if we're going to look at some solutions with, say, River Run doesn't work out for us, what other options will we have? Well, this property you have to look at how's the property, the topography of the property. Well, when we looked at it, 15 feet on the high end, which matches across Beecham Row, it's low on the back end, that's favorable, which means slope is there to move the water from one end of the property to the other. Okay, that was a green light. Let's take the next step. Start looking at the outflow. How does this property drain now, and what happened? Well, there's actually a swale system or a ditch system that's in there that helps move the property. There's not a whole lot of piping. It's open ditches throughout the property. And the flow, actually, the blue line is how the water actually flows on that side of the property. What's interesting about that is this is where our outfall is now. So if we're looking at our property that's impacted here, does this piece give us some additional solutions to move water out? Well, at the time we said, yes, I think it does. Let's go to the next step. Started talking with Ryan at the county, and I have here Ryan, Stormwater Sediment Control in critical areas. Great guy to work with. He came out and said, yeah, he looked at the topography maps and said, yeah, this makes sense to us. So I'm going to back up, look at this area, zoom in one, our turn down through here, and then our flow out St. Martin's River. And again, this is all around 5 feet in elevation. So this actually gave us a really, really strong potential of solutions to get the water out of the section free across Beecham Road and out to the river. The other thing that was interesting about this, what we need to talk to Ryan about, if we were going to consider this, how expensive is this type of endeavor? Well, because it's a swale system, it becomes, and remember, he's sediment control and stormwater management. The sediment control through the swale system is what's preferred because it helps filter the water as it leaves before it hits the waterways. And there's also grant money that assists you in building those types of swales. So again, green lights, again, you go, okay, wait a minute, there's another potential strong strategy to resolve a problem that's been going on for 10 or 15 years with folks in Section 3. Had to look at details on the property. It's bank owned, Cecil County Bank. It's approximately 95 acres. Zoning E1, which is a state, 1 unit per 2 acres if you were to do residential lending, build a home on it. That's the E1 zoning. Flood zone is C, which is favorable. Topography, 15-foot and 5-foot slope, which I already showed you. Current pricing at the bank, and it's still current today, $1.7 million for the property. The reason this became interesting, a lot of money, but if I'm looking at a solution, if we did anything other than the 2-year solution at $400,000, when you increase to the 10-year solution, it was $1.4 million. And all you do is get piping in the ground. So I started looking at that and go, whoa, wait a minute, we need to take a look at this. If this resolves a long time problem, maybe it's something we need to consider. Hence, brought it to the board at the time and said, look, here's something that could help us relieve the problem in Section 3, which started our initial endeavor looking at the Pine Store property. The board asked me, the primary advantage, we had a very, very strong possible solution working with our county partners to remove the water from Section 3 across Beach Road and out to the waterway. The downside was the cost of the property. You know, that's a pretty big chunk of money to go out to outlay. Board asked me, Bob, what are other potential uses early on for that property? At 95 acres, well, obviously we said you wanted estate sales. You could sell off lots in the future. Other things, ball fields, community gardens. At the time, if you recall, dog park we hadn't built yet. So a place for a dog park, walking trails, golf courses there, using 9 holes as an executive course, a little shorter. Other things that are extremely important, which this was really, when I started looking and started talking to public works, bulk storage area. I don't know if you've seen our public works yard. If you haven't, go take a look. We've got a mound of dirt there. We were fortunate to get dirt free from Walmart when they were building it, but that's the area where we stack everything, storage of it. We have our leaf disposal. We spend a lot of money moving leaves away from the community. Having acreage to actually put the leaves, allow them to compost, huge advantage, big cost savings for us. Dredge spoil. You have to have, if you dig out, do any dredging, it has to sit. And Commissioner, do you know how long it's supposed to sit? I don't remember what Eddie told me.
No, I know there's definite controls on it, and dredge fall sites have to be approved.
Okay, so these were all the things we were looking at. We said, okay, here's some other potential uses out of the gate for this property. The last one was RV and boat storage. Okay, if you put a chain link fence somewhere on the property, you can resolve the ongoing issues with people saying the boat's too big, the RV's in the yard. So a contractor is using it, it's going back to using trailers. Well, if we had a spot to put a gated fence in, it might solve another issue that the community had. So there were a lot of potential uses or opportunities when we looked at the property. First was drainage, which started, and looking at other potential uses for it. Other things to consider, which were discussed, 3 properties next to us. I bring it up because it did come up in part, at least in my thought process when I'm talking to the board about it. We look at the Burbage property, which if you all recall, the zoning change created a lot of heat, a lot of what's going on with the county. There were a lot of folks calling pretty regularly going, hey, what's going on with the property? Why don't we have more say in it? You don't own it. You don't really have a say in it. The next one, which has become the latest where a lot of people are really concerned about, is right up in here near the north gate where all the trees were removed. And Palmer Gillis is doing a property there. And then we approved because the State Highway Administration said, look, it's going to be safer if we give this small strip of land for the exit strategy for the property. Again, office phone calls are ringing, people are wondering about it. Things that the community was concerned about. Questions people asked me, why didn't we make an offer to buy the property? Well, interesting, years ago when it came available, we did. Sent Mr. Moore down to the courthouse or down to the county to buy the property with a certain level, and the property went slightly higher. So we didn't get that property. So when you're looking at Ocean Pines and our land lot, this property comes available, which serves multiple opportunities for us to look at immediately fixing a drainage solution, and then all these other options that come in with it. Hence, worth at least considering and talking about. Conclusion, There are no current offers on the table from Ocean Pine Association to buy the property. We're not committed to it, and there's no current offers on it. The board is asked to put the information out so we can have an open discussion about it. Nothing hidden. I gave you kind of what started it, why we were even looking at it in the first place, then the other pieces that went into it. Lastly, because drainage was the inception of it, if you want to go back and look at the hearing that was done, because I've sat back and looked at it again, March of 2010, you can go jump right on our website and take a look. You'll hear the hearing. Same thing. Stagnation at Beecham Road. Options to fix it. You know, those 1, 2, and 3. 400,000, 1.4 million, 3.7 million. So these aren't new. They've been out there. But we haven't really gotten any further along with fixing it. Thanks to the work with the group that we've been working with for over a year now, we have a potential solution, but wanted to get this out there, why this was even being considered as an opportunity to talk about for the community. That's the extent of my part of the presentation. I'm going to turn the lights back up, and I'll answer any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the things that the county and the state, everybody's worried about are critical areas.
Yes.
Critical areas, worried about it because they're worried about rainwater running off nutrients into beds. Seems like this solution is now taking an area that's probably beyond critical area and running water directly into the bed. Is there any sort of relation there? Any impact environmentally?
Property? Is that what you're there?
Right. Well, anywhere, any way you get the water off Section 3 into the St. Martin River in an expeditious way is taking rainwater runoff, putting it in, and it's sort of like, is this expanding the critical areas? I mean, what's going on?
In my opinion, as being licensed to do stormwater management in the state of Maryland, Delaware, this current situation through River Run, by adding this water going through River Run, you could have a more perfect situation because it goes through a series of ponds, which are perfect collecting sediment and clearing it up before it actually discharges. So I think that's a perfect situation because sediment ponds, the ponds are perfect for collecting sediment. I mean, it stills it, sits there, and settles, and by the time that water reaches the St. Martin River, it's going to be clean water, in my opinion. The second solution that Bob's talking about, if you're going to fall under the new criteria for stormwater management design, it would have to be approved by the state and everyone, and you have to create ponds, lifts, areas of vegetation, so that by the time it gets to the St. Martin River, it is perfect condition. I mean, otherwise you will not get a permit to do it. So, in my opinion, the effect on the St. Martin River will not have any negative effect on it. That's just me talking.
And the reason I brought this slide up, because I went over a little quick, on the Pine Shore property, again, because that is something we're looking at in addition. That green spot is a low spot just before it hits the 5-foot area. There's already some water setting in there. It was our intention as part of our strategy of making sure that swale was cleared out, was to put a retention pond here, not unlike the Bainbridge Park pond. So we have Bainbridge Park, crosses the road, filters as it goes out, hits this. To what Commissioner Bunning said, we realized we would have to do something like this that would hold that water to continue to filter before it went out. So those considerations were taken. And again, please, we haven't gone through any approval. We weren't nowhere near in that position, but they were considered. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mike Palmer?
It is. He is.
Well, I don't know. I know I'm hard of hearing. I don't know about everybody else.
Can you hear me?
No, sir. I didn't hear a word you said.
No critique then, right?
The invitation here said that membership participation and feedback is extremely important in this matter, and I agree it is. I followed this all along. I've been to all these hearings and everything. One of the two county commissioners were here last time, your predecessor. That's how long ago it was.
I know.
It's a problem for those people over there, and we need to solve it. But I think that we're looking at two different issues, two different projects. One is buying that land, and the second is solving the drainage. Now, you could say they're related in some way, but after hearing what Mr. Bunny's been doing and his progress thus far, drawing up actual documents and so on, that usually doesn't happen if you draw up documents until people pretty well agree on something. But like you say, nothing's perfect. I'm kind of confident that that problem with the drainage, a certain confidence level, that problem with the drainage is going to be solved for a relatively small amount. So then we get to the issue of the land. I'm not opposed to buying that land at all. I'm a strong supporter of owning land. Those of us who are old enough or young enough, I guess, if you rewatched it, Gone with the Wind. I always remember the line when the guy said to Scarlett, Scarlett, it's the land, Scarlett, the land. It's the only thing that lasts. So I'm not opposed to buying that land. I think it's a good idea, provided we can come up with things that we can do with them, other than just having it sit there and maybe sell it to somebody else later. But once we buy land, I'm going to hold on to it. I think we need more information about what can be done with that land. You were using, that land is owned E something, E1. I don't know if we can use that for leaf dumping or sludge dumping or putting up buildings for public works. I got a feeling that the people over in that area, including Mr. Meltzer, if we had to go for zoning changes to use any of this stuff, there'd be a mutiny and there'd be a long line of people down at Snow Hill objecting to our dumping sludge over that property. I could be wrong, but I kind of think. So I think we need to get our ducks in a row to what we can do with the land. But I would urge, Bob, you and the board of directors, of course, you're operating at the direction of the board. I would urge the board to keep you on looking at use it. But I think we need a lot more information before we can put in a price or purchase. And that leads me to my final comment. At the beginning, I said the invitation to come here said membership, participation, and feedback is extremely important in this matter. I read that and I was a little disturbed. To the board of directors, the feedback from the membership on buying this property was totally 100% unimportant. They didn't care what the membership thought because they already made 2-3 offers on the property. And if the guy had accepted the offers, we'd own it now and the board would not be asking for any opinion on anything. If the referendum trigger was 1.7 million, or 1.8 million, if the referendum trigger was higher than it is now, or higher than the purchase price, the board of directors would not have asked the membership one single word. No, they would have went and bought the land, which is exactly what they tried to do. I mean, let's face it, is that correct? This board made offers on that land.
I'll tell you this, I'm not going to make any comment on a closed session.
Okay.
The board certainly can. Whoa, wait a minute, whoa.
Anyway, that's all
That's our money. No, here's what I'm going to tell you. You're welcome. Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to answer questions about closed meeting. It's not appropriate.
Tell us if they made an offer.
It's inappropriate for me to do so.
Come on.
I'm just telling you now, Mr. Stevens, I have several board members here, so they can, Mr. Stevens. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a comment because in the last session, I believe we opened up the information on what we're doing. And this is for the last 8 months, by the way. Last 8 months, since April, we've been meeting in closed session to discuss it. Now, we didn't have a whole lot of meetings. first one really kind of did. The first one authorized Bob to make offers directly to the seller. And basically, we determined an amount, threshold amount. That threshold amount was exactly equal to the referendum limit, to the limit to avoid a referendum. That's just a simple truth.
Coincidence, right?
No, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence because one director walked down to the front, opened up the books, he did a calculation, came back, and gave us. The offers all came back with a price. I'm sorry, there was a counter offer. 3 cases, the counter offer was always the same. It was always above the referendum limit. So we've gone for 8 months, really. I think what goes in act, we've gone for 8 months trying to hide this, trying to hide the fact that we're doing it right now, trying to hide the fact that we don't want a referendum. We did not want a referendum. I say we because whether I voted for it or against it doesn't make any difference. I'm in the same room with everybody. Now, finally, Marty Clark decided, actually, in their motion, passed unanimously, that all offers are be withdrawn. And Bob Thompson is exactly correct, saying that no offers. But there was a second motion that came, which is perhaps in dispute right now, but there's a tape over in that building that anybody can listen to, which basically said this will now be open to the public. Explain to the public what it is that we were doing. You're entitled to know this. You were just flat out entitled to know it. And we voted unanimously that that information was held and was not accepted.
Dan, just to your side, there's no dispute about what the motion was, it's in writing. And if anybody wants to get an important transcript of it, I'll be happy.
If anybody wants to say that what I said was not true, then go say.
All right, Dan, what's up, Bob? Yes, sir. My turn. Yes, sir. These two gentlemen are absolutely correct. Was an offer. We were contacted about the land. There's an opportunity possible to get the land for a lower price than what it was currently marketed. We met, discussed, decided to take a shot at it to see if we could get it at a lower than the price on the market. Couldn't do that. Then met again, as it was just reported, to say, you know what, we need to get this thing out behind closed doors. There is a misunderstanding around the motion of making it public. There's no debate that in the last session that the board of directors had, it was 7-0 that we wanted this topic out into the public, totally presenting what was going on. There was a news release that was to go out. It was my determination, nobody else's. It was my determination that there was that I understood that release to say there's going to be a town meeting to tell you about what's going on. There are people in the meeting who have listened to the tape again that said, no, the motion meant we should have put in writing what you saw tonight, put it in the motion. So if anybody wants to get blamed for anything having to do with that motion, I'm standing right here.
I think you're being disingenuous. I don't think that's how it happened.
Well, the bottom line is, Marty, you and I have talked to each other, and you know that I wanted this thing out into the public just as much as you did, and that's where we are.
But then you stopped the press release.
First offer failed.
It was after the first offer.
But if the first offer hadn't failed, we would own the property.
We could have bought the property for less than what was on the market for. That's exactly right. That's what Dave Stevens said, and he was telling you the truth.
Okay.
Those are the facts.
So is it the practice of the board to try to go out and do these kind of things in closed session so he can't say anything, no one else knows? It's our money.
I've been on money. I understand.
Okay.
I've been on the board.
It's our money.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I clearly do. I've been on the board for 2.5 years at this point. We've had less than a handful of closed sessions.
Okay.
Okay? So it is not the normal practice of this board as far as I remember. Dave's been a president of the board, I don't know how many closed sessions he had, but it is not the practice of the board.
Well, under what reason could you make the closed session? You're going at 5 rounds.
Because if you're in a debate, if you're in a competitive arena, where you're trying to compete to win the price, you're bidding against other people for a piece of property, and you're announcing to the public, oh, our number's 1.4, that's why. Okay? We are in a competitive bidding arrangement. This is not something that is as clean as we like it. But the reality is, at the end, okay, that's where we were. That's full disclosure. That's all there is to it. Dave, you go ahead.
May I add?
Sure.
May I add that one of the first things when Bob presented this offer, I asked, look, this may be a great idea, and this may be a good, a lot of information, but can we not go ahead? We know we're going to be limited by the revenue. Make a contingent offer to the seller, approach him, make a contingent offer. Now, if that was ever done, actually, the answer was no. The answer was that idea was summarily dismissed. Maybe it would have worked, and maybe it wouldn't, but we never even tried. The whole intention, there was a lot of other things going on at this time. It was like a yacht club referendum that could have possibly been effective, and there was discussion about that. So, it wasn't a matter of keeping the offer. Let me point out something. This has been going on for 8 months. 8 months. The property is still on the table. It's still on the table.
Over on this, I had these two hands up, and I'll come back to this side, if that's all right. Go right here first, I'll be easy. All right, yes, ma'am, go
I
ahead.
just wondered, what is the average price of an acre in Worcester County?
Depends on where it is.
Location.
Location.
I don't have that answer.
You better have that answer if you're going to be bidding on something.
I don't have that answer at my fingertips.
Well, average price.
Okay, your question?
Okay. Mine isn't really a question. I know Lou Nelson. He previously made an offer on the property. He might very well be interested in making an offer at this time on the property. Possibly. In which case your solution of avoiding going through Nelson's property River Run may go away because he may own both. I make a comment, however. One of the things you consider doing is putting in the drainage system through that property, which probably takes very little acreage of 95 acres, and then sell what's left for probably very close to what you pay for it. Well, get your solution and sell it off and let a developer or whoever do what they wish with the rest of it.
Mr. Wentworth?
Yeah.
I'll come back.
All the information that's been shared is very accurate. Also, it's very accurate. Final slide, showed regard to that. Asking price was $1.7 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's where it is, and that's where it's been. So there's no hiding that fact. Just told everyone here, everyone who's listening or watching knows that's the asking price, $1.7 million. So my question, if the decision is made by the board of directors, that's the number that will have to go to referendum, take that to referendum, how would that impact other projects that are currently on the agenda, and how would that redefine the priorities of what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. We had, not the others weren't, or belittling. We are, obviously, when I'm making recommendations for consideration, I'm looking at that. Where we are, what's in the next 2 to 3 years from expenditures, capital projects, those type of things. So yes, I have that. I apologize, I don't have it here in front of me. Carmine and I were looking, because we're going through budgets now, of where we'll be based on what the expectancy of expenditures over the next 36 months are. The yacht club being the biggest project, which would be the biggest drain on reserves. So yes, that would be something that we have to strongly be considered. And I'll go this side, I'll come back this way. All right, and yes, sir, I'll come back.
Heard a lot of good comments tonight. My first question is, why are we here? Joe read what the announcement said. You're looking for some kind of feedback from us. Is it, do we buy this property? Are you looking for a yes or no? What kind of feedback are you looking for to make a decision, and what decision are you looking to make?
I believe the feedback that you're currently providing is exactly what we're looking for. Just your thoughts and feelings on it. There's no offer from us, right? Getting it out there, getting it circulating, talking about it, I think is exactly what they're looking for. It's a very, very small group here, so we would have no, if everyone here said yay or nay, that, that's not 8,446 property. I think this feedback, this dialogue is what the board, and I have several current and past board members. Current board members, is this the feedback you were looking for?
He's got his hand up.
Okay, let me get my feedback.
I'm being ignored, but.
Mr. Gomsack, yes, sir. I'm trying. Hands are going up.
Thank you. I'd like to respond. I'm Pete Gomsack, and formerly on the board, but now just a regular old member of the association. I'd like to respond to what Dave Stevens said a few minutes ago, and directly disagree how he characterized what occurred. And I've read in the paper what I believe he suggested to this group here a few minutes ago with respect to the board meeting that took place in closed session was that a price was determined in order to avoid the referendum, and that was the basis for that amount being determined. He also made reference to a director, that would be me, walking down the hall to get the budget book to go back with a number. And he's told you all that the director came back, me, with the number. How many of you, by show of hands, believe then that the number that he came back with was the number that went into the offer? How many of you had that impression from what he said? Clearly what, okay, so you with your hands up believe that that was the base. The number was received by Gomsack, walked down and said, okay, here's the number for the bid. Is that what you're saying? That's what he indicated. Fine. That did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. I did walk down the hall. Here's the other question he raised, and that was whether or not we should put a contingency into contract. And that's for a very valid reason. You can't make, seems to me, not a lawyer, a real estate person, seems to me you can't make an offer that you're not authorized to make if you then subsequently got to go get approval for that offer. Does that make sense?
I think that's
okay.
The word contingent means.
So, what Pete was asked to do, and what I volunteered to do, because the question was on the table. Hey, this amount, having been independently, Bob came up with an amount, the board was debating the amount, wasn't in the context how much we need. The question was asked, does that subject us to having to go to referendum, in which case we might have to put that in the contract? I said, well, let me check. I then walked down the hall to the lobby, got the budget book, and came back with what Mr. Stevens described as, quote, the number. But it wasn't the number to make the offer. It was the number to say, look, this is the amount that would trigger a referendum.
What is that amount?
It's around 1.6 million, ma'am. 200,000 higher than the 1.4. I just want to set the record straight, because I've read it in print media that the board finagled it and said, okay, here's what it takes to do a referendum. That's the number we're going to offer. That is clearly untrue. Thank you.
Sure, this is one of the problems with having secret meetings. Okay? He said, according to some people that believe you, Mr. Gomsack, or some of the weak, Mr. Stevens, this is ridiculous, and that's not the point of this meeting. I have two questions. First off, I want to give an opinion with regard to what Joe Reynolds said, so I disagree. Land is not everything. I think we're not real estate investors, we're not speculators, okay, and we don't have deep enough pockets, okay, to take care of the yacht club, beach club, which is with private bathrooms, country club, and bridges, and all this other stuff. Just don't have deep enough pockets. We shouldn't do that. This is not what is in the scope of homeowners association like us. the hell out of that, not even consider it. But we are considering it, so I have two questions. Okay. One is they're both in regard to the property. One is, I wonder if you considered, rather than spending 1.7 million, 1.4 million, whatever property, what about an easement to be able to do drainage there and not owning the property? Okay. Question number two is to our commissioner. Okay, you talked about some of the things that would have to be done to that property in order to make it usable for our needs to do the drainage and so on. Sound like substantial drainage, ponds, and so on. Can you give us an estimate of how much that would be? So we know that it's 1.7 million or so plus. What is that plus, actually? The two of you can answer those questions. Appreciate it. I don't have a number.
Well, first of all, you have to do your due diligence on the property. I mean, there's a 1,000-foot critical area line that has to be put on that map. That outside that 1,000-foot critical area line, you can't do the estate lot size. You're restricted to 120. And it would be costly to do it to get the water and meet the state regulations through that property. The property, as far as getting just an easement through it right now, and I may be wrong, but this is not the only property that's involved in this situation. The owner has another piece of property, and it's currently owned by the bank. You're not going to get that. I don't think that would be a solution, trying to get an easement through the property until it actually becomes owned by a corporation or individual. The bank's not going to do that because they're in control of it. They want to sell it, but it would be costly.
Well, as a surveyor experience, can you give us a ballpark figure so we can add that on to 1.7 million, get a better picture? We're not going to hold you to it. You've got to see how much forest you're going to disturb. You've got to areas you're going to clear. You've got forestry law. You've got critical areas law. I've never been on the property. I've never walked on the property. I would not even attempt to give you an estimate. I mean, I would do my due diligence. If I was asked to design the stormwater management, I would go out and research the property. Then I could give you a price of what it would cost. I'd have to do that as a surveyor. You're talking about tens of thousands or $1 million. I mean, where are we? Can't you give us some idea based on your experience? You see the size of the property?
No, it wouldn't be millions. It would not be millions.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I'm not in real estate anymore for a long time. I used to be, and inevitably when I'd show a property to somebody who had a vacant lot next to it, they'd say to me, "What's going to happen with the vacant lot?" And I'd say the only way that you can control that is to buy it. My question is, do you happen to know what possible uses that might be not pleasant, such as pig farming, incinerator plant?
For that property?
Are there things that we might want to own that just so we can control it, so something like negative doesn't happen? Not only positive things can happen to the property, but things that you don't.
I do. What's that? Yeah, I do. And I've started to answer your question earlier, Joe, and we got something else. But just kind of a heads up on the zoning. Permitted uses include agricultural, roadside stands, single-family dwellings, manufactured homes, minor subdivisions, rural cluster subdivisions, major cluster subdivisions, golf courses, spray irrigation fields, storage lagoons for Class 2, special exceptions for schools, firehouses, assisted living facilities, country inn, bed and breakfast, places of worship, recreational areas, and centers.
Follow up.
Sure.
Agricultural uses?
Yes, ma'am.
When my parents first moved to Ocean Pines, I asked them, why did you move to Ocean Pines? Why did you move to Ocean Pines? Why didn't you buy a cheaper piece of property out in the country? And their answer was because of agricultural uses. uses because it's prevalent to have chicken farms down here. They didn't like the smell from it. And to them, it was worth the increase in property value to buy into Ocean Pines. I just want
Yes, you can put a chicken, you can, per the agricultural zoning, you can put a chicken house or chicken farm out. I can't talk about Marion in the back.
My gosh, I went back, but as a long-time property owner in the area, in Ocean Pines, I want to say a couple things. First of all, my biggest concern, I know, there's a solution for the drainage issue, but, if you're spending our money, and I know you understand that, I know that I would say, look, I hope in Ocean Pines you're the first solution. Give it a hard look, make sure it's going to have a long-term effect, a long-term solution. Because I, as a property owner, do not want Ocean Pines to spend my money. Because the way I see it, if I'm this other property River Run, knows maybe it's a viable solution down the road. I'm thinking we have taxes, we have we have upkeep, maintenance. If you're putting an RV park or gardens or something, someone's going to have to maintain that. That's more workers, more taxes, more issues. You have to think about that long term. But also, the next question I have is that I'm thinking about our dear old yacht down the street, and we have that project started.
We haven't broken ground yet.
All right, I'm still there. Okay.
The permitting, yes.
But my concern is if we really could talk about spending 1.7 million plus on a piece of property and project, we really need to finish the yacht club. We need to finish the pools. We have some issues with our pools, understand. Let's take care of that first, and then look on larger project. Just a thought.
Thank you. Was there a question on this side? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bob. As a poor senile citizen, with only 39 years.
No one believes that about you.
With only 39 years in banking and financial industry, I would have been forced to make the choice that we would first see what Commissioner Bunting's worked out for somebody's $100,000 before we even had a meeting about spending $1.4 million or $1.7 million plus another $500,000 for the infrastructure, plus taxes, maintenance, upkeep. I think this is a fool's errand. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does the river run's potential solution solve the problem?
We believe it will solve the problem.
At significantly less than 1.7
Oh, absolutely.
million. And there's very close to making a decision, Mr. Meltzer's lawyer.
Yes, I was told by our attorney today that we expect to hear from his attorneys. They're reviewing the agreements for the easement and the agreements. I mean, Mr. Meltzer's being very, very accommodating to us, other than that he wanted his engineering firm to verify the numbers our people had ran. So, it's like I said, nothing's in stone. I'm just doing the best I can, but it's looking good. We should know something within a week or so. Our people are ready to get DFW's got the plans basically done. We're ready to bid it out, as soon as we get okay and sign an agreement with Mr. Meltzer.
So we're confident that that's going to solve the solution, and that decision is relatively near.
Yes.
What additional potential value does that property give us?
Well, keep in mind, part of the reason to share this now, as I said in the presentation, parallel paths.
Right.
We were nowhere close to where we are today with the Solutional River Run when this inception first came, when we first started talking about it. So we were running parallel paths. The board said, let's put it out there now. There are no offers. We've withdrawn, given the additional information with the potential solution, we've withdrawn any offers. But because of all the information that's out there, getting it out so everyone knows exactly what occurred, why it occurred, under what conditions, that's why we're sharing the information now. And again, the board can jump in anytime to say otherwise.
Is it fair to say that if the river run solution is approved and implemented, that the discussion about buying Pine Shore North really ends?
I would, okay, let me answer it two ways. I'm not trying to avoid, but I'm constantly looking at the community and 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, what we represent as a community. I'm going to tell you, I'm constantly bringing things to the board. Some they're going to accept, some they're not. But my honest answer is I'm going to keep pushing on everywhere I think we can make improvement. It's up to the board to say yes or no. We execute her.
Primary value of this property in the immediate future is as a drainage solution.
That was the inception that was the starting point for us.
Yeah.
And looking at all the alternatives were something that I was requesting.
I don't know that I have a strong feeling to spend $1.7 million to compost leaves or store RVs, but understand that your job is to look for alternatives to better the community overall.
We're out, just so you all know, from my perspective, we're out of space. We're limited. We're growing as a community. If you look at the projections, we've grown more than any other community in the county. Okay, if you look at the 2010 census tract. So what are we going to look at 10, 15, 20 years from now? I think it is prudent to at least be exploring these opportunities, looking at them. Doesn't mean we spend the money, but to put our head in the sand, and I can give you the best example is Mr. Gills put the property right in front. The number of calls, how can we let them do this? What we should have done this or that. Guess what? By ignoring it, by not being proactive and engaged in it, these things are going to happen because we have no right to it. So I will continue to be looking and bringing the opportunities out. I think it's looking at long-term solutions protects our property value.
Yeah, but I think we need to stay focused that opportunities are limited by resources available.
Yes, sir.
And
that's
our resources are stretched.
Right.
Yes, sir. I agree. And we'll go up. You were first, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the river run, to me, sounds like the best drainage option. Yeah. Owning additional property, I think, is a great idea, and I know that everybody does. You know, they look at you and say 1.7, but then again, they get very, very upset when you look out by Route 90, the property there being cleared, and why didn't you buy it? They're going to say the same thing about this if somebody starts building something there that's very strange. And price-wise, I don't have a problem with you having meetings behind closed doors. When everybody does all this, then they'll start wondering why you didn't get it at the right price. Buying something you have to do behind closed doors. But anyway, put that aside. We shouldn't really be talking about that. But we have a lot of other things that have to be done. I know you don't want to change subjects.
No, I will. I told you at the end, I'll talk about anything you want to talk about.
Okay, but I mean, we have, you know, and I don't know how critical the bridges are right now, but I know that's going to be some heavy costs. Bridges have to be done at pace. And I know we haven't spoken about that in quite a long time.
They're and I don't know if the commissioner wants to talk about it all, but they're accepted into the county bridge program, part of the state program, place for repairs on the bridge and charge for major replacement participants.
But I thought replacement was going to have to come up not too distant.
There's some back and forth debate about it. Current report versus old report. I'm actually looking through those, believe it or not.
But is that going to be us or is that going to be county?
It depends on if it's a repair, a major repair, or a replacement.
Okay, and then like people said, the beach club and all that, and that's what, like I said, I have no problem with an investment with property if in fact we can afford it. That's my biggest concern about it, is whether or not we could afford something like that. And I know that when you do an acquisition, you start advertising what we're going to pay. If I wanted to buy the price, I'd just pay attention, find out what you're going to offer, and then make my deal.
The market's soft right now, so buying property is relatively inexpensive compared to tax. Doesn't mean when the property values have decreased, you're going to have this significant increase of it. But the fact that we've been here 40 plus years as a community, I have to say the community will be here. Whether any of us are, don't know. But looking at protecting our property and those adjacent to us by consideration of consent, I will continue to do that and continue to put that out. Yes, sir.
Couple of points. One, Tom, I know you wouldn't go to the members and say, we are negotiating a seat, try to buy a property for $700,000. But I'm not saying you name the price. I'm saying you let the community know somehow that you may be interested in the property. I think the board's got to do this. I don't think this kind of stuff good community. as property owners and association with some information. Secondly, we're talking about a real estate deal here, okay? We got a piece of property in front of the post office that, as far as I know, Ocean Pines has no intention of ever using. That if it's a really nice market now for us to buy this, somebody might want to buy that. And we can get some money in where we're not paying tax. Do we pay taxes on those properties that we own? Okay. We also have that infamous 19 interior lots. I think we sold almost all of them. Ocean Pines said they were. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't think we sold any. But I'm being facetious. I am being facetious. Yeah, they're all literally speaking. But I'm saying that commercial property out in front of the post office, if we have no intentions of using it and the market's good, why don't we, because it's soft prices, why don't we offer it to somebody and provided they put the right kind of thing on there and get some money in, get some money into our coffers and get some money into our coffers and stop paying property taxes on it. And lastly, if we do buy that property, one, I think, use that everybody could agree on, it would be another amenity, is to make it into a cemetery for owners.
You live on the south side?
No, I do not.
Okay,
I'm
I
in the
live on
poor
the
section.
south side, their problem. I have to deal with all the stuff out front, pizza, all that. Now, everybody says north side, oh, and they complain because the side, in a medical building. Well, look what I have to deal with. And then you want to put north like office? You want to sell that?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I would like to get rid of paying property taxes on something not used.
Well, you can deal with it. I don't think it's right. I have.
The Redskin in the back had her hand up, and good game last night, thanks for wearing the jersey. And now come right back there, I promise. Yes,
A
ma'am.
couple of points. While I understand that negotiations on property need to be, or can be transparent, for the obvious reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
I feel like there's been some deceptions going on that I've read about and heard about, and there's only one way to stifle that in the community, and that's not. I think that there could be letters go out addressing certain things that you have an interest in, getting a little feedback. This meeting came way too late as far as I'm concerned. I understand that there's a need to fix this water problem. That has to be done. I'm not in favor of owning more property that we're going to have to put more money into. I think we have enough amenities here that we all love that need to be maintained. And again, it comes back to it being our money, and we need to have a say in it, or it just goes carte blanche, and we're going to do this and we're going to acquire that. I asked you earlier this summer at a meeting at the Yacht Club about the interest in this particular property, and you said there was, that although you're always looking at property that's adjacent to Ocean Pines for the obvious reason, but you denied that there was ever bids on that property.
I don't know that I denied it. I'm very
You
careful.
denied it.
Here's what I can tell you, ma'am.
You denied it.
No, please understand my role in the organization. I'm not a board member. I'm an employee of the organization. The rule book or the bylaw, I follow them. So I will say you can or can't say, I read those regular, I follow those because that's the way I believe my role is supposed to be. So I don't talk about things in closed meetings for that purpose. That's
You
at
invited
a board.
me to stay after that work, specifically to discuss that issue.
And I would not
A bunch
have
of us
discussed
did
it.
stay, and I mean no disrespect to
I
you or your
understand that.
position.
And I'm not taking it that way.
I'm just saying I feel deceived by the
Okay, I
information.
would not have confirmed any offers. I can tell you, today I was at, and I said, I can't do it. Board members are here, let them do it. I would not do that. I think it betrays the trust from my position with the organization. I would not openly discuss it. I can assure you that. I've had people asking me for 6 months. Trust me. Press all around me here ask me regularly. I do not discuss closed meetings. I think it's inappropriate for me to do so. So. Yeah. I'm sorry, ma'am, and I hope, again, you may disagree with me, but it's as honest as I can be with you.
gives me a very uneasy feeling.
Okay.
And
Fair enough. Yes, ma'am.
I liked what this gentleman said. And I liked what this gentleman said about owning property. And if you want to consider a use for that property, if we should buy it, price should drop. There are hundreds and hundreds of people from Ocean Pines that have left Ocean Pines to go into retirement homes with 3 levels: independent living, assisted living, and nursing. There are a few around here, but they've gone either to Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, other places. We have nothing around here. We have Berlin Nursing Homes, consider they go there. We have assisted living at Woodlands, which is numbered and small. But we have nothing close to Ocean Pines for the people that love Ocean Pines that would like to stay in the area. If that property should be bought, want to use for it, rather than putting public works there, which I think is a waste of property, meet with somebody like Axe or some of these big conglomerates that build these 3-level retirement homes for people, and you'll keep your Ocean Pines people right. I, for one, would stay. There's a lot of them around here that would stay. Probably stay too.
They won't come, but we try.
We try. Well, just a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am. That and the graveyard. So I have the assistant. I got you. 2 steps on right side. Yes, sir.
Bob, I'm just an average person here. So I think that there obviously are a lot of details that need to be explored. You know, if you look down the future, it just seems to me when you have an opportunity to get a piece of land with all these solutions involved, boy, it seems to me to go after it. I mean, I know it costs money and we got a lot of money to spend, but I mean, 20 years from now, might be very sorry we didn't grab it. Just my opinion.
But your heirs might be. You may not be, but you leave your house to somebody. Yeah, I'll go here. Mr. Stevens, yes, sir.
Yeah, can I? Yes. I can't leave without saying this. I've been on the board 5 years, and this problem, drainage in that area, has been all 5 years. I've been personally sued as a group because of inaction, and please don't say, yeah, we don't. And I just want to thank, and I know other people involved, but I want to thank Commissioner Bunn for what he's been doing.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many undeveloped parkland acres we have in Ocean Pines?
I don't, but I can get you the answer.
What, 100?
Don't, but I can get you the answer. I don't want to be misquoted on something.
I'd like to know. I think it's close to 100 acres of land sitting there back there.
Yes, sir.
Undeveloped.
This gentleman brought out a good point, and Gene brought out, we were talking about negotiating private. It's always good when you're trying, Gene talks about, tell people what the topic is. When I ask for a call, you don't have to give me all the gory details. Just tell me the generalized topic. But in this particular instance, as far as keeping it quiet goes, there's no bidding war here, believe me. Everybody in Ocean City, and for the nearest 100 square miles of this property, knows the minimum price of property is $1.7 million, and nobody's made an offer of $1.7 million. So there's no bidding war here. It's
So offer them less.
we did it.
Yes, ma'am. You had your hand up.
Can any of the gam
Casino money, as it's written, infrastructure is kind of the focus. So it's for improvement. So I don't want to say it can be used to acquire land, but land has some infrastructure, the possibility, yes. I guess what I'd look at is we've spent bulk of our casino casino money, or we will have this year, on the road resurfacing. You know, because it was something that had been kind of put aside for a number of years, and we're using that money in that. Yes, ma'am, again?
Can we really switch the subject?
Sure. Are we good with this? I'll answer any other questions.
Let's go get a drink.
Go get, no thank you, I'm drinking my water. Okay, go ahead, ma'am, and now I'll answer anything else now, so if you have other questions. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't as serious as some.
I like the idea, though. We wrote it down. If there's money in it, I'm putting the plan together.
In the meantime, my question were about the fun near and dear to my heart. And that's the yacht club. I love the yacht club. When I understand it died, I understand very concerned about of my summer. That's where I live, so they kick me out.
Well, two things. The board made it very clear at the last board meeting that was a very high priority. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I'm working on it. I met with folks today about it. I walked it. I'm in it. So it is a high priority. We will put a plan together. I have to put a plan, develop a plan, present it to the board, track. So that's what we're. Yes, ma'am. And I'll go back here and I'll come back up front. Yes, sir.
How many meetings did you have like this?
Ooh, quite a few. Yeah, pretty
What was
right.
the possibilities of that passing?
What? I'm sorry.
What was the likelihood that was going to pass around?
That depends on who you talk to.
Okay, what was the referendum?
2 to 1, 4 to 1.
58%
Yes, sir.
favor.
2 to 1, the property owners relied on you, board of directors, to make an intelligent decision with mine.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Guess what? I don't know why, I don't know, maybe I'm getting out of here with getting further off on referendums and whether
That's
the board
okay.
can meet secretly and all that jazz. Yeah, I voted for those people, the board, to make the right decision.
Yeah.
They hired you to make the right decision. Evidently, must have made the right decision on the yacht club, even though I thought most of the meetings I came to, that thing had no chance of passing. None. You might say that depending on who you talk to.
Oh, no,
But
I
I
know.
know 10 meetings you come to about that yacht club, that thing had no chance of passing at Wednesday. So guess what? Go buy the property, because guess what? What happens is going to be this. We're all going to be sitting around here after that property is bought by somebody else. We are going to be after your head and the.
Not mine. I'm bringing it to you.
Yeah, right. And a referendum would have passed.
I appreciate your thoughts. And I'll come here and I'll come right back to you, man. And both of you have your hand up. Yes, sir.
I'm going to be a little repetitious, but I think cemetery is a great idea. So is the assisted living. Okay. The only thing that's bad about it is that we should not be in that business. You have the Steens, the Centex homes, the people who are developers should be doing that. We should not be doing that as a homeowners association. Okay. And I think when you're talking about future and expanding our footprint, bottom line, it's not part of the job. The job is to manage, maintain, and preserve what we have, not to expand. Developers are the ones who should be doing the expansion. I think that's a great idea. Okay. And I say one other thing, and I think you're probably going to make me think I'm an SOB, after I say this. But I've been through a 10-year flood. So maybe I've been through something that nobody's ever been. I'm not sorry, not a 10-year flood, 100-year, which is a lot worse, which was in New Jersey in '84. They just had in the same place that I moved out of. They had the same thing last year. It's 100-year, but it comes up more than that. But you know something? All the years that I was there, I never asked my neighbors to fix the situation for me. When I went there, okay, I went there with open eyes. I knew what I was getting into. Okay, and I don't want to ask my neighbors here to fix Beecham Road. I do want to ask the county and the state, and I did that in where I lived, was Pumpkin Lakes, New Jersey. And I think that we do have to do something about the drainage. It has to be done, county, the state. We have no business spending $1 million, $2 to fix that situation. That's all it is.
Yes.
Yeah, if the bank had accepted the offer made by the OPA, how was the OPA to finance the purchase?
financing solutions. One of which was the primary one that seemed like had the most traction. Again, there was nothing finalized on it. Was a combination of money down plus a borrowing. It was a combination. To what number exactly, I don't want to tell you it was X or Y. But I had to look at the reserves, where we were with the yacht club, approval. All those pieces had to go into it, of how much we could borrow, what we could expect, the financing, those things. So it was a combination.
Was there a particular reserve fund that the down payment?
No, I was looking at a number two. Yes, sir.
Any idea when they're breaking ground on the yacht club?
Yeah. We're going through the permit process. It could be as early as middle of January. Well, you've got to go through planning and zoning, which we've done, to get your building permit. We're looking at the site plan. We've had some damage to the pool there, so we're looking at the site plan. We revise our site plan to include it in the entire footprint, which helps expedite how to. There are a number of things that have come up in the last 30 days that have just kind of.
We don't have all the permits yet?
We don't have all the final permits. We're through the hurdles for the majority of it. I mean, the hardest ones we're through. Yeah, it's just with the pool now and potential challenges there, I'm trying to put that plan together, and do we include that in the site plan for the entire project since we're there now anyway.
How bad is it broken?
It elevated with the surge water. It washed out from under the deck.
Right.
Or water, the dirt, the support structure under the deck. So there's some damage to the pool. I can tell you this though, regardless of what happened in the storm, if you want to, I'll walk you down there. If you want to walk in the pool with me, part of the challenge we had last year, I was right there when it happened. We ordered mats to cover. You have top all over where the base of the pool is failing. The walls is peeling off. You can, I walked in today, and I'm in these shoes, but as you walk on spots, they were spongy where it's the plaster over years, water's been getting under it, it's been cracking. Had a child under there in the summer last year peeling the plaster up, and that's when we immediately put the mats down. They weren't sharp edges, but they're just like chunks. Well, I've got to look at all the options and present to the board for their decision.
One last question before I have the bathroom.
I haven't worn you down yet.
Why is Ocean Pines listed the yellow page?
I don't know that they are.
There it is. See with your own eyes.
Okay. Let's see. Ocean Pine Association. Oh, real estate development. we pay for that. Whose phone number? We don't pay. Oh, we don't pay.
I've rung that phone 100 times. Nobody ever answered.
64154. I'm about to.
Oh, I have. I've called 100 times.
That's not. I don't know that.
I think it's a holdover.
Right, wait on.
Boise County.
Who's
paying for it?
641. Go ahead. I'll answer.
Marvin Steen.
Is that Marvin Steen?
I think it's Marvin Steen.
That's not Marvin.
No, I'm going to check. That's not. We did not run that ad.
Wally, that's my.
Tom Terry, watch your phone.
We know exactly.
Who else? Yes. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I just wanted to say I agree with Joe purchasing the property for the future of Ocean Pines. The other thing, man that wants to sell property on 589, that can have anything go in. It can have a trailer park, it can have a skateboard.
Not if we restrict it in the
car
contract.
park. You can't.
No,
They can buy it and they can put in whatever they want.
Years ago, I did that. I called for that phone number, and it went to a realtor.
No answer.
No answer.
It's just right during daylight time, so. All right, any other questions? And I'll answer anything about the community. No MediaCom questions. I know you went to MediaCom. You didn't come to the meeting, you're out. Now, Steve, what was your question?
Are we in the first contract, MediaCom, or has it been reviewed?
There was things forever. It ends in 2000. The current contract ends in 2013. There was an extension way back when. The one that starts in 2013 is a 5-year extension, and then the end of the contract.
they have no intention, obviously, in that meeting to lower their rates or give us a basic. My question is, can we have a meeting at Town Hall with a competitor like this, one of the directors?
The challenge,
we have to buy their inventory.
the challenge with them, the question was about the media company, having to come in and buy them out. They have to have someone willing to buy out their network, all their lines and everything. I'm not sure we're going to get that. We haven't had anybody show that. All right, thank you all for being.
I got it.
You got a problem.